Hey everyone, welcome back to the Filibusted. I'm Jason.
And I'm Michelle. Tonight's episode is called Messaging Misfire.
Trump's victory is still echoing across the nation. We're here to break down where the Democrats went wrong. Was it simply a messaging misstep, or is there something more at play?
We'll be dissecting their newly released game plan and exploring how it's poised to alienate a huge block of their own voters.
If you're ready for a deep dive into political strategy and the fallout of miscommunication, buckle up. This conversation's about to get real.
Let's get into it.
So, obviously, it is March. Jesus Christ. We had an election back in November. Unfortunately, it did not go the way we had hoped. It was, in fact, a worst case scenario where Trump not only won the presidency, but they also took the House and they got the Senate. They have a trifecta. He's basically got all of Congress, and he's got the presidency, the White House, and the judiciary, essentially, since he stacked the Supreme Court with a bunch of fucking far right freaks. So, it's not great. I think one of the things that's important to remember is the election is closer than it looks on paper. Thanks to DEI for conservatives, the electoral results looked a lot worse than the actual election. Obviously, won electorally, 312 to 226. However, the popular vote, he did not even win a majority. He won a plurality of votes, meaning more people voted for someone else other than Trump. But be that as it may, Republicans are still screaming that they have a mandate because they obviously live in a different reality than anybody else. So I think the important thing now is to figure out what exactly went wrong, right? We spent this whole time saying that democracy was on the ballot. Trump is an authoritarian fascist. He's going to run the country into the ground. Everything's going to get more expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And we still lost. Never mind the close margins. Loss is a loss. And what went wrong? Do the Dems have a messaging issue?
Yeah, I think that's what's really hard to understand because we have so much information thrown at us every single day. I mean, you have so many people look at us. We're talking about politics. And I mean, I started a list and I have at least 70, 80 people that I follow. And they all have their own opinion. Then you have all these news outlets. You don't know who's being truthful, who's not. They just kind of blurt out what is at the forefront of their mind, and especially on the right side, and people don't ever go to really fact check what's happening because there's so much that happens, and people are just, it's information overload all the time. But like, I can't tell you how many times I've had to correct even people from outside of the country where they're like, well, you guys voted for Trump. This is what you all deserve. And I'm like, whoa, 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 let's back this up real fast. This man only won like 49 and some change, 49% and some change, like small change percent of the people who actually voted. The votes that were counted. Let me read that. So like out of 150 some thousand votes, he only won 49 and some change percent. Like he didn't have a mandate. Not everybody voted. There's like 240 million, maybe 244 million eligible as people over the age of 18 who are alive per the last census that could have voted. Now, obviously, that doesn't count people who are medically, whether they are have a mental issues. Like, it doesn't count. It's just people who were technically eligible. So even if we took some out of that, I think there's like 180 million some that are registered to vote that are still alive. There's a large portion of people who either one didn't have their votes counted, or two, didn't bother to show up to the polls to cast a vote. But he definitely didn't win by mandate. Nobody voted for this. In fact, if anything, it would be more people voted against him than for him if you count in all the dumb people that voted for Jill Stein and the rest of that, knowing they were just throwing their votes away anyway. But yeah, definitely. And then when we talk about messaging, you just hear it all over the place because there is so much. You can almost only take it in small chunks. Who has the time to sit down and watch hours and hours and hours of all of that information every single day? It almost takes a team of people to keep up with what's happening in the world now.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think one of the things that kind of got lost this election cycle, I don't know who they were talking to. I feel like some of that got lost, right? Obviously, inflation was sitting somewhere at like 9% on election night. I can't remember what it was now. Biden, his credit, had making a lot of strides to kind of rein in inflation. Obviously, it was a worldwide thing, despite what some people on the right will tell you. It was a lot of pandemic spending and supply chain issues caused by the COVID pandemic. Inflation happens, and it's something that had a huge effect all across the world. I think every incumbent party had elections this year lost, which is bonkers. Now, we may have been the only ones who voted to go like straight fashy, but still, it was a worldwide thing, and I don't know that the economic messaging that Kamala was trying to deliver necessarily did. And what I mean by that is, I don't know that she was hitting all the things where people consume their media today, right? We know she attempted to go on Joe Rogan. Apparently, scheduling didn't match up. She did the Who's Your Daddy
No, he
podcast.
canceled
She
on
ended up
her. It was not about scheduling. He canceled on her.
he's denying it. I know it came out in a book, but he's been denying it. I don't know that we're ever going to know for sure what happened there. Regardless, she didn't go on it. She went on the Who's Your Daddy, or Call Your Daddy, Who's Your Daddy? I can't remember. I think it's called Who's Your Daddy podcast. But I don't necessarily listen to podcasts, right? I don't sit here and listen to the Joe Rogans and the Theo Vaughns and the Lex Friedmans, all of which Trump went on. And I think the thing I don't like about that is, I am fine with people doing podcasts. I am fine with people being interviewed on podcasts. What I'm not okay with is when they go on a podcast and they get these shitty ass softball questions and there's zero pushback. Like, I remember Joe Rogan when he did the Trump interview. To his credit, he straight up said, "Are we ever going to see this evidence of this stolen election?" And Trump looked like a deer in headlights. Like, oh fuck, I didn't think I was going to get that question. Shit. Because here we are, he's been saying elections have been stolen since 2016. He's now got the presidency, he's got both houses of Congress, he's got the judiciary branch, he's got fucking all this shit. Now would be a great time to fucking rub it in everybody's face and be like, see, here's all the evidence. You were wrong. I was right. Fuck all of you. It was stolen. But nothing. So he's got all these people believing for almost the past 10 years now that we don't have free and fair elections. And then he goes on Rogan, and Rogan just lets him fucking duck the question. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, Rogan's been a shill though for a while, and like even Theo Vaughn, like he had deleted a tweet the other day because like people jumped his shit because he guess he formed some type of weird fucking connection and an opinion all of a sudden about Zelensky. And I'm sorry, the dude is MAGA. Like so is Joe Rogan. They can claim to be a lot of things, but Joe Rogan's been simping for Elon so hard it's almost disgusting. And it's hilarious in its fact. But like, yes, Joe Rogan is a make pusher of misinformation, deep state bullshit, and all this other stuff. He red pilled himself because of algorithms. Like that's what these people started watching and like what was giving him the most hits back in like 2010 through like 2015, and then he just fed the monster. He started believing it. It's like if you sit down and watch Fox News all day long, you're going to get brain rot. You're going to start believing it. People who do nothing but watch Newsmax, they get brain rot. If you talk to them, they will say, well, it's better to have a dictator than a king than be under the rule of a Democrat, because they think they're under some type of weird, like they're in a foxhole. They're being psychologically like conditioned and tortured day in and day out. They lose all sense of themselves and common sense to begin with. And yeah, a lot of this has to do with people getting their news from the wrong sources. And we would never claim to be news. Like that's please. Like I'm always like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I try not to talk in absolutism or give hard facts. Just the sheer fact that I would never want us to be taken as news. We're completely opinion only.
Well, I do like bringing facts
Yes.
here, but yeah, I would never state something about fact checking. I think the funny thing about Theo Vaughn was, I think the tweet that he deleted was about Zelensky giving us our money back, and I'm like, do you have some kind of unknown need for Javelin missiles that I'm unaware of, Theo? Like, what are you going to Fallujah? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, we sent him old, deprecated military equipment. Like, what
Yeah,
money do you think he's going to give us back?
I think that's it. I don't think there's ever enough. I'm not sure where people know where to go to figure out like what we're doing when we give when our Congress says they're giving like $4.3 billion to this country in aid, what that actually means and where would they go to see exactly, is this like a check, a cash, we're wiring them $4.3 billion, or is that $4.3 billion split up into like food and like maybe resources that we don't really need, but it would really cost us like $8 billion to destroy them, like these old weapons we gave Ukraine. Like where do they go to get that kind of information? And I think that's where people are buying into whatever they're being told from the right, because at least they're getting told something. All they're hearing from our side is, oh, that's aid, that's soft aid. Nobody's qualifying these statements. How many people knew that, when we talked about giving aid to Ukraine, that it was in those old weapons we could no longer sell, we could no longer use, and it would cost us, 2 to 3 times more to try to dispose of them versus giving them to make it somebody else's problem. And it was twofold. We got soft power, we looked good to the rest of the world. We helped beat back Putin and make sure his reign doesn't spread, as well as, just take a burden off of our shoulders. So I don't, where would people find out that information? And that's the problem. That's what's not getting that's, people aren't providing qualifying information when they say these things, because one, I don't know if they know it, or two, they buy into this 30-second, bit of people. That's all people's attention span is for. It has to be super simplified, and I don't think it has to be that simple.
Yeah, I think some of the appeal, I think, for podcasters like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and their ilk, I guess, is they have a very casual way of talking to people. It's very chill. They don't talk like they're super educated or anything like that. They're very like they're a conversation you have with your friends when you're out drinking beer. Not that I go out with friends and drink beer, but I'm given to understand that they may converse that way on occasion. So I don't know that we're properly messaging. Like take when Kamala was on the campaign trail, everybody knew that tariffs were a bad fucking idea, because we all know that when you implement a tariff on somebody, that tax is paid by the importer of that item, not the country that is selling it. So essentially, if China makes a car part that some car manufacturer in Detroit needs, Detroit pays China for that car part, and then they pay the tariff to the importer pays it to the government. So China gets paid regardless, and they don't pay the government jack fuck all. It's the person importing the good from China that ends up paying the tariff, and then depending on the economy and depending on what the good is, they will more than likely just pass that increased cost on to the consumer, which is fine when you understand the core of tariffs and you understand that that is what makes them a sales tax on the consumer. But I think on the campaign trail, they were just saying it's a sales tax, it's a sales tax, it's a sales tax. Well, fucking why? Because all they're doing is saying, well, no, it's not. Well, fuck. Okay. So, okay, now is a good time for Dems to say, hey, I think we lost her. Are you back?
I am back.
Excellent.
Yeah, it kicked me off.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw this thing that was getting connection issues a little while ago. So I'd hang out for a minute and see what happened. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to explain why something is a sales tax to combat the messaging coming from the other side, because then it just becomes no, and it's unserious, but you still have to counter it because that's all they're hearing is and then, well, then what? Then you're just saying yeah, and you sound like an idiot.
Yeah, I think there it's twofold. I know we've talked about this quite a bit, where we saw like the best analogy when somebody was talking about how a tariff actually works. Like, hey, you buy these shirts from this country over here. Now there's tariffs. You used to buy it for $10. Now, not only are you going to have to pay the $10 for the shirt, but your country charges a tariff, meaning you're going to have to pay your country, you as the purchaser, the person who, you're going to sell these shirts. You're now going to have to pay your country, 25% 100%, whatever the purchasing price was, plus 25%. So if it's 25%, you pay $10, you're going to have to pay your country, in this case, the US, $2.50. So now this shirt, instead of costing you $10 plus shipping, is going to actually cost you $10 plus shipping plus the extra $2.50. Well, if you sold this shirt for $15, do you think you're going to cut into your own profit, or are you going to mark up your shirt?
Yep, and I know personally, I will be marking up my shirt.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's currently happening. Tariffs only work in cases where you have, and this is the other side of the argument too, because people are going to counter and go, well, we should be making things in America anyway. Yeah, that would be great. First of all, let's roll this back to like the 70s and 80s when all of our factories shut down because big, large corporations didn't like the EPA. They didn't like following rules, the safety stuff where they'd have to pay people if like they lost an arm or any of that fun stuff. They didn't want to have to do workers' rights. So they sent it overseas where there's not as much regulation. So let's go ahead and point the finger back at the oligarchy, all those corporations, and let's use them. That's their fault to begin with. So we have to rebuild those factories. We have to rebuild the things. We have to put a workforce into place and all this fun stuff and let it ramp up. So you're not going to do this overnight. So buildings have to be made. You're going to have to bring in machinery and all this other stuff. That takes years to do. This isn't anything where you snap your fingers and it's like, ta-da, we've got the manufacturing to go. Then you have to find the workers, people who are experienced in making these things. You have to get it off the ground. You have to ramp up. And it takes years, 2 to 3 years to get that stuff going. That's why Biden and his administration about 3 years ago invested all that money into steel. And in 2026, guess what's happening? The tariffs to China on steel are going up. So that only gave the highly invested in steel manufacturing for the past few years time to do all those things, build, start manufacturing, hire, train, all that fun stuff, and ramp up to this next year. And then that gave time for all the people who purchase steel from China to then switch over, get out of their contracts and switch over to US steel. That's how you fucking do it. You don't just come in like a wrecking ball like Miley fucking Cyrus and go, ha ha, and just rip everything out. That's how you crash your economy. It's almost like he has no business sense. I digress. That's a whole other conversation. But
Well,
it's explaining stuff like that.
He did bankrupt a casino.
6 months. 6 fucking months, Atlanta City. That has to be, like, he has to go down in world record. Like, has nobody nominated him?
I mean, they print money.
I know.
It's another name for a casino is just money printer or ATM machine.
I mean, I don't know how. I'm at a loss, honestly, how one fails so epically, like, hard that they can't even keep a casino. One where the house has the favorable odds, unless you are so corrupt, and that's honestly it. But I mean, so corrupt and so inept that you have no idea what you're doing in life, and all you do is just flail around until and if you look at him, most of his shtick is stealing. He's a grifter. He's a con man. His dad was a con man. And that's all he does is it's the art of the con. It's not the art of the deal. It's the art of the con. And that's ultimately what he is. And so it's it's pretty hard. So yeah, I think there's twofold. I think you can still explain things in a way. I think I kind of found that like in tech. So you can take a lot of things working in the tech industry and working especially frontline tech support. You learn how to explain things to people where may not be like 100%, but it's enough where they like the light bulbs click for them because you can make it relatable. Like when the guy, was selling t-shirts and, the person used the analogy with buying t-shirts and stuff like that. It made sense to the guy and the guy was like, oh yeah, okay, wow, no, that's not good. Tariffs suck. And you can see the light bulbs going on. And I think that's the approach that people need to take is like, how would you explain this to your 80-year-old grandma? You got to bring in facts, but you got to make it consumable where it's almost like explaining it to a 5-year-old.
So you say, Jesus fucking Christ, Grandma, just fucking do what I tell you. Jesus.
It's like me explaining File Explorer to your mom on Windows. It's like a filing cabinet, here's all your stuff, and technically these are all your file folders.
I think the other issue is it's getting kind of difficult to figure out who the Democrats are actually catering to. I think that's a serious problem. And I think we heard about that a little bit post election. It wasn't a ton of stuff, but there were a lot of people who just felt like the campaign was missing on populism, which Trump ran on right wing populism, which is you're only poor because of brown and trans people, as opposed to left wing populism, where it's like, yeah, corporations are fucking you, and you need to do something about it and stop letting the oligarchy run your entire country. I'm a big fan of that type of populism.
Yeah, I think some of that was a strategic mishap only because, they were hoping that people had enough common sense that, hey, if it walks like a fascist, talks like a fascist, it probably is a fascist. So you probably don't want to go down that right? Because they did technically hop on the patriotism train. It's like, hey, we fought this shit, back in, the World War II. Like we don't want to repeat, right, guys? Let's not vote for the fascist. And he's shady, he's a liar, he's an adjudicated rapist. Like he's the bad guy. Let's not forget this. And the vast majority of people would understand the assignment, wouldn't lose the fucking plot, and they would march their little asses down to the damn poll and go vote to keep the bad guy out of office. And then we would go back and we would try to fix everything retroactively. It was one of those things where we were coming to a tipping point anyway. But I think ultimately, I don't think it was Kamala that lost the election. I believe it was our Dems in the Senate and in the House. I'm talking about the old, like the old Clinton era ones. They have, we know they are essentially just Democrats in name only. They are sit with Republicans, they vote along with Republicans, and they have not been for the people and the people who have voted for them in a very, very long time.
The esteemed neoliberals.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. And that's probably the best just definition for them is they're not even Democrats. They're just old neoliberals that are way too comfortable grifting and making money in their position and way too complacent and all that. And it really has come to light, especially in the past, 60 days of Trump being in office. It hadn't even been 60 days yet. It's been what, 45,
Oh, fucking
45
remind
days?
me. Jesus Christ, it
Yeah,
feels like a fucking
45 days.
eternity.
It feels like 8 goddamn years, but you can literally see them either whining, people are going to wake up and they're going to realize we're not in power. Yeah, well, you can still act a damn fool. And that's what we want you to do. Show us, go do a fucking haka in the middle of the Senate and just lose your mind the whole entire time and stall. Like, we're not going to think any less of you. In fact, if anything, that's probably going to get people to go, fuck yes. Finally, we want to see that fire. We want to see that spit, and that's where they've lost it, and that's why Kamala lost. At least that's my opinion. Is it wasn't her. I think she got the brunt of this just kind of muddied water, like bland saltine cracker leadership in the Senate, and them just being corporate. It just feels disgusting, and unfortunately I think she got the brunt of it.
She did for sure. I don't know if it was so much the people in the House and Senate. I do think, from what I understand, she inherited Biden's campaign consultants. And you want to talk old school Dems? Biden was the oldest of old school. And I think that those consultants were very averse to a populist message. And they really kind of leaned into the, orange man bad, democracy's on the ballot, stop Tim Walz from calling JD Vance a couch fucker. It's not appropriate. Funny as shit. But evidently they didn't think it was appropriate because they fucking benched him. Like, her polling was going off the chain during the early days. And that's when Tim Walz led in with that, they're fucking weird because they are. This
Yeah, they are. I
party
mean, they were
is
carrying around
weird.
cups of look like specimen cups with saying he's JD Vance is coming there, and that was disgusting. That was
And we know it's not in there either, but you
Yeah.
can't bring a sectional to a campaign rally where all the cum actually is. It is not in a cup. Not JD's anyway. But no, it was great. Mike Johnson has got his kid monitoring his porn habits. Apparently, these are not like normal people, right? Like Marjorie Taylor Greene's got space lasers. Lauren Boebert's giving hand jobs during Beetlejuice plays and vaping on a pregnant woman. Like, these people are fucking unhinged. Tim Walz's messaging, I felt, was wildly successful because after he started pointing that out, people were like, oh yeah, these people really are fucking weird. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? And they benched him. And I still, for the life of me, I can't find out why. When you have messaging that works and you see that it's working, fuck their feelings. Like, lean into that shit. Fucking these weird ass fascist couch fuckers don't need to be anywhere near the Oval Office. And they should have leaned into it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we missed parts where Kamala did, get some low blows to her. Or she threw some punches and stuff like that when she had like protesters come to her rally. She's like, "Oh no, I think you made the mistake that you're looking for the small rally down the street." In other words, talking about Trump's rally.
I
She
was
knew
gonna, I
how
do
to
like
throw some
making fun of
shade.
the
Yeah, but
making
you're
fun of the
right.
rally size.
They did bench, but they also had 100 days. Like Trump had all this time, and Trump's been and it had a whole social media program. And I'm not making excuses for them. I think there's a combination of things, but when it comes to the actual voters being disenfranchised, I don't think it was Kamala. I think they felt like because Joe Biden was so milk toast. He was what we needed after Trump. Those first 4 years we needed, and with COVID happening, we needed somebody who was kind of milk toast and just kind of. But the problem is that he is also so like, you know, part of the system and part of that old school Democrat. He didn't encourage the people in Congress to change, to be a little bit more progressive, to go out there and fight the good fight. The DNC just kind of sat on its fucking hands and didn't really do anything to go out there and try to flip the seats. It's like they were okay with staying the minority because everybody was, I guess, in some weird, I'm not sure, weird shell shock. I don't know. But they missed a lot of opportunities over the 4 years to gain some ground and at least get us even, or at least keep it. To get that messaging out there. And, a lot of the feedback is, oh, you guys sound pretentious when you talk and blah, blah, blah. Those weird central like they're almost libertarian in their views, and they're centrists more than they're not Democrats, guys. Those are people, and if they say they're Democrats, they're fucking not. I've come across them, and they sound very smarmy when they talk. First of all, they're not that intelligent. If you ever read through the word salad, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They just use enough words. They try to appear semi-intelligent, but you can disregard those motherfuckers. They're not the majority of people. They are a small minority, and they get kind of shuffled off to the side. Most people on the left sound like me and you. Very kind of down to earth, kind of chit chat and stuff like that, and have the ability to actually get out there. We've just been told by our party to stop and like shut up, be nice, and all this other stuff. And I think that's come to the head where we're just telling, some of these older people on the left, shut up, you sit down and shut up. Nobody wants to be friends with people who are MAGA. Even if we're not going to call them actual Nazis and actual fascists. They're still quislings, which if you don't know what a quisling is, that is a reference to in Norway. It does mean traitor. It was a general, if I'm not mistaken, that helped Hitler. So in other words, it means like facilitator of the enemy is a really good way to put that. But yes, it's an insult, quisling. And they're quislings. And because they're helping facilitate, the over, because of whatever, like infatuation, whatever, to come and do harm to others. They're quislings. And no, they can do their own thing. But yeah, when we look at this messaging and stuff like that, I still want to point back to one. You made a good point, the consultants and stuff like that, but still it comes from Congress, because they're what are in the face of people every single day. And it's not the AOCs, it's not the Jasmine Crockett's, it's not your Jamie Raskins, it's not those Democrats. It's the ones you never see, you never hear, or if you do, they're voting in alignment with the Republicans sitting next to them. which is not in the best interest of the people. It's for something that's going to line their pockets.
Yeah, it's a shitty thing. Like, you do get some Dems. I don't want to call it airtime because airtime is kind of a misnomer. But if you're a fucking political nerd and you're on YouTube and you're watching like the oversight committee hearings and you're watching the judiciary committee hearings, you're watching all these other boring ass fucking hearings, you get to see like the AOCs and the Jasmine Crockett's and the Jamie Raskins, and Jared Moskowitz's, and all these people completely on these feckless loser Republicans because they can't hold their own in debate with our bench. Our bench is amazing. The younger crowd that's getting in, you have your Maxwell Frosts, you have your Goldmans, you have the Moskowitz, AOC Crockett already, Raskin.
Yeah, but that's the House. That's not the Senate. The Senate is probably where the worst of them are. Where
Outside
they
of
just
Bernie,
mine is
fucking
Bernie.
get rid of them all.
Yeah, mine is Bernie. Bernie always, but for the most part, they sit up there and they don't do a lot to help the American people. And I think that's what people were so like frustrated with. You talk about them, they say the Democrats, but I don't think they mean like that portion. They feel like it's the upper portion that does have the most power. That's kind of that senior leadership that just kind of does a lot of nothing except a lot of self-interest. And so voting for Kamala, while the vast majority has understood the assignment that it was better than Trump's dumbass being in office, that nothing was going to change. We were still going to get a lot of centrist stuff, things that people didn't want and they weren't going to fucking listen to us.
Yeah, I think the House kind of has the edge in representation since they do represent on a district by district basis. And with the Senate, you get kind of hoodwinked because they are representative only of your entire state. Of course, each state gets two. But I think with the House, you get a broader swath of people. I think Senate, you always end up with this old guard that is, I don't even really know I know what their purpose is, obviously, from a legislative standpoint, but you don't hear from the Senate as much, even on the Republican side. You don't. I mean, they may catch somebody like a oh fuck, what's his name? I just blanked on it. Like a fucking Lindsey Graham or some shit, right? You'll see him get caught in an interview on CNN or some interviewer will catch him in the hall somewhere or whatever. Well, I swear I have never seen someone act so recklessly as that Zelensky fella in his sexy onesie. I loved it. It made his hips really pop. But aside from like those little sound bites and those people, failating like Fox News and shit, you don't often get to see, come to think of it, I see way more Republicans represented on Senate Republicans represented on television. Democrats. Now, Joe Manchin used to get a lot of airtime. Bernie gets some airtime, but of course he's an independent. The caucuses with Democrats. Fuck, I'm gonna have to pull up a list of Democrat senators.
I don't think they're allowed to. From my understanding, is like outside of Elizabeth Warren, because she's the big one, probably most people see, and she probably does the most talking. Besides her and the other one, the one that was injured and then got Schumer over AOC. What's her name?
Oh, she's House Pelosi.
Pelosi, yeah, but I'm sorry. Yeah, but like you don't. Yeah, you're right. You don't see too much of our Senate out there actually doing much when it comes that. Yeah, because you see Warren quite often. Like I
mean, you see a lot of the shitty ones. Like if I see John Fetterman again, I'm gonna punch a baby. I think because that feckless fucking. I'm going to sign the Lake and Riley Act. It's just common sense to suspend due process from immigrants and send them to Guantanamo Bay. Perfectly reasonable stance.
Yeah. I just, you're right. You don't see a lot of them, which is a shame because I believe we should see more of them. And I think that's been part of the problem. We see more of the Republicans. So it looks like they're honestly doing things when they're not. And they get to control the narrative because they are in front. But I think that comes from a poor consult, just thinking because even Michelle Obama had that for a while, when they go low, we go high, and it's always been that thing of Democrats is just ignore the haters. Just keep doing what we're doing. We're doing right by the vast majority of people. Blah blah blah. And it's not sold them in this day and age where you have, a lot of information going. You need to be out there controlling the narrative. So it's good to see like them sending out Jasmine Crockett and Bernie out on his little anti-oligarchy and stuff like that. But like back to your original question, who were they actually speaking to? I don't think they understood who they were speaking to. I don't think they understand exactly who votes for, who were like the 48 and some change, percentage of people who voted for Kamala this time. Not just the people who didn't vote, but the people who did vote. Who are those voters? And what does that actually mean? Like what is the working class versus the middle class? What does that terminology actually mean? Who are the people who didn't vote? Who are the people who only voted for Trump because supposedly of egg prices? Like, where was their messaging? What were they being told?
Eggs.
Yeah, and I'm
so
sorry,
expensive.
that is a pretty little lie that they say. It's like I think I told you this. It's like when you tell someone, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't call you back, man. I just wasn't feeling it good." When you were fine, you were yakking it up, playing a video game, watching a movie. You just didn't feel like fucking doing it, but you're sparing their feelings, and that lie is the palatable lie that allows you to get away with and just kind of smooth things over. And that's all that was is the prices of eggs. Groceries weren't coming down. When they were coming down because my eggs, when I went to the grocery store, they had already come down $2-3. With bird flu happening, they were still cheaper. Went to the store the other day and they are $7 more for the same thing of eggs that I paid $8.99 for. They're now like $15-16. And I'm like, no, thank you. We gonna learn how to cook without eggs.
Well, I think we should clarify that this was the 30 pack of eggs, not the dozen. I assure you that in our market, a dozen eggs are not $15 yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. But I mean, still, like that's almost like a double the price, already. I can only imagine how much worse it's going to get now with all these damn tariffs. But they had already gone down because not even 6 months before that, about this time last year, obviously before that, so it's about 8-9 months before that, this time last year, they were like $10.99. So they had already started to come down and we're back at a reasonable price. So it wasn't about fucking eggs. That is a lie. Prices were doing really good and they were dropping and the grocery bill was starting to like make sense again. And, we were not spending that much money at the grocery store like we were, 8 to 9 months prior to that, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. People are lying out of their fucking ass when they say that thing. I'm just sorry. Like, if somebody said it to me, I'd go, "You're a liar." Like, you're just a liar.
I mean, let's be honest.
Disconnected from reality, or you're a liar.
The same people that were complaining about eggs on Twitter were the same people who also went on Twitter to complain about Trump moving his inauguration inside after they spent several $1,000s to get up to DC for the inauguration. So yeah, they can all eat a bag of eggs for sure.
Yeah, you had Trump money to go buy to go fly out and do that. You had money to go spend on eggs. You just voted out of hatred, and it could even be like you didn't realize what you were voting for, but you wanted to own the libs. You wanted to show somebody somewhere because you either felt like they were getting too much or whatever, because you can see it. They get on TikTok and they say the quiet part out loud. Now, I don't want you guys to have a single red cent. It's all about control. That's what the anti-abortion stuff is. It's all that. It's these people who have no control in their life, and they want to control something. And this is it. It's like that overbearing mom who just controls everything their kids do, and like their kids can literally not squeak without the mom going, "It's not time to squeak yet." And just she strangleholds them. This is those type of people with that personality that just they ran to the polls and they just could not vote for anything else, even though they know he started an insurrection, even though they know that Nazis, literal Nazis, this is not hyperbole, this is what we have in the US. These are neo-Nazis, the neo-Nazi parties support him, that the KKK supports him. They don't vote for anybody else except his ass. So that should tell you something. You have your alt-right, which is a literally like 2 seconds away from goose stepping down the damn street with a little mustache on. It's insane. And they just ignore that piece of it and just say eggs and check marked his name. And then It was all for control, just all because they have no control in their life and they needed. It's weird. Like I think I talked about it before. It's like it's some weird like clout thing where they feel vindicated every time he lashes out and people get upset. Like they owned them, but they
It's
didn't.
talking about the own the lives phenomenon.
Yeah. But
Like,
they
I
it's
will
like they feel
literally
like
vote.
almost like they won though. Their own personal battle they won.
It is. It's a game to them. I may have gotten myself deported, but I owned the libs,
Yeah.
and I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
It's that I think is the true brain rot. I would understand that mindset. Obviously, where we live, we've watched people vote against their own best interest time and time again. This
Mm.
state is poor as fuck because our education system sucks. It's also dumb as fuck, which is a very dangerous combination. You can't swing a dead cat in this state without seeing some brain dead chuckle fuck be like, "It's Donald Trump! Make my
Yeah.
eggs expensive!"
I think for me growing up, it was the lottery. The fact that people were like, "Oh no, we can't have a lottery. That's gonna bring in criminals and all kinds of shit." But literally, you'd say, "Hey, I'm driving. I'll be going to Pensacola. I'll be going to Florida, or I'll be going to Mississippi, or I'll be going to some state that Georgia that has a lottery." And all of a sudden, they wanted you to buy like a Powerball ticket, or like bring me back 10 lottery tickets. Here's $20. Here's my favorite numbers. They're willing to throw their money at another state for the state to use that money to make themselves better. But by God, they'll vote no every fucking time to have a lottery inside of our state.
Hell yeah, brother! Can't bring the corruption down here in
I'm
that.
like, what is wrong with you?
We'll keep our Powerball in Florida and Mississippi where it belongs. I'll gladly contribute to their education fund, and we'll strip ours for water parks. That's the plan. Old me Moss said so.
It blows my mind. Every fucking time I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand the mindset of where, but these same people are the buffet Christians, the ones that go to church every single Sunday. Oh my God, Jesus, we love God. We go to our Six Flags over Jesus, and oh, you got to be a good Christian, and then do the most nefarious shit, like have a ton of affairs, like cheat on their taxes, like
Beat
blatant
their
shitty fucking,
wives.
yeah, like blatant shitty fucking neighbors, do shitty fucking things, and then say, "But I'm a good Christian." And you're like, "What?"
Like, compared to what? Like, Hitler was a
No.
Christian, so is that the bar? Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the bar,
I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? In my good ear this time, please." I'm
right?
like, "I
Hold
don't think
on.
you know what that means."
Let me go throw this hearing aid real quick, and let me get that from you again real quick. Now,
Exactly.
I honestly, this is probably a topic for another day, but my personal opinion is religion makes people so much less Christian than actual Jesus that I don't understand the point at all. Besides, like, subjugation themselves, enriching themselves. I think
It is. It's subjugation is ultimately what it boils down to. It's another form of control. I had this talk with the boys not long ago about why I have never really exposed them to religion, and part of it is that one, I don't want them indoctrinated into anything. Like I want them to make choices as adults without any pre-bias, on what they should or should not believe in, or fear based. And I definitely didn't want them making decisions based on fiction, based on stories, based on something that is really takes belief, because that takes a whole different type of mindset, to base decisions off of that. They should be making decisions at this age, based on logic, and they're gonna mess up and stuff, and they shouldn't fear like them going to hell because they made a mistake. Like, live that life. I went through raised Southern Baptist, and that's not something you put on a young child.
you
Just
don't believe in our mythical sky daddy that's supposed to save us
no,
all from damnation.
absolutely not. So no. And if there is
Well,
one, he's
you're
an
just going to
absolute
hell then.
asshole, and he can get fucked because yeah, let's look at all the shit that's happening, like, and has happened. All the deaths, especially all the deaths in his name. At the Crusades, the Salem witch trials. I mean, I just go on and on how many people have died in for Christianity, or in the name of Christianity.
I want to know what kind of god fucking sticks with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. He's an asshole if there is one. So that being said, but I think one of the things we need to get back to is who were they talking to and who were they weren't. One, I don't think, like I said, I don't think they know. And I think it's really good for people to understand exactly what the working class means, versus middle class and everything else. And honestly, the middle class, there's not much in, at least for the past like 10 to 15 years, probably since like the first economy crash back in like 2008, 2009.
The first one we remember or were alive
Yes,
for.
that's what we said. The one this century, in the 2000s.
This
It
millennium.
was,
Shoot.
yeah,
Jesus.
2008, 2009.
Yeah, 2008 is when the housing market
Yeah.
fucking exploded.
So that one there, I mean, we haven't been quite right since that. That definitely kind of adjusted the bar kind of wonky, and what it did is it pushed the middle class down a lot farther, and made it closer to the working class. So your working class is really like your less skilled, and typically they do manual labor. So if we look at that less skilled manual labor, think of like people who do manufacturing jobs. I mean, it really is, they do retail. They do, fast food. They do construction. Anything that is typically manual labor and or what we consider low skill. Middle class is in, they're lower in pay too. So think of those lower in pay. So probably people who get paid anywhere from baseline $12,000 a year up to probably about $40,000-$50,000 a year now, at least with inflation. How inflation works, that'd probably be that range. And then like middle class is like higher skill and a little bit higher pay, and so when they talk about the working class, they're really talking about the poor people, people below middle class America. And I think that one's a tough one because you'd really have to integrate yourself into that culture, and to see exactly where they are. And most of those people, they're going to be online with your Joe Rogans and stuff like that. It's just what they're going to listen to and what they're going to do. How do you counterbalance that outside of having the left having its own influencers that can reach that mindset, to that subsect of people? And I think we've got a good start. Like I said, I've got a list of like 70 some, people, political, talking people that I listen to on regular, just on YouTube. That's not any other podcast. That's just on YouTube. I have a list of like 70 some people that I obviously not all in one day. I consume them, in like kind of in a cycle, but yeah, it's a lot better than what it used to be.
Yeah, I think I don't think they know how to message to that class. I think they got so caught up for a long time in identity politics, and a lot of that was the straight reaction to the right when you had Rush Limbaugh on talk radio back in the fucking 90s, starting all that shit, and Fox News with all their propaganda shit. I think they lost track of where they were. I don't think they know how to get back necessarily. I think that would probably be a full video in and of itself because I think they have a lot of ground that they need to make up. I think they lost that messaging for too long. I think they probably exacerbated by how they treated Bernie. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But when the DNC came and fucked him, that kind of I think had an untalked about effect wherein
It
think
felt
a
like they
lot of
didn't hear
people
our
felt
voices at all. He had so much behind him, and had they just like let it happen and listened to the people, but it feels like they're going to make their own decisions and not listen to the rest of us.
yeah, and then Trump came in with his fucking right wing populist message, and people ate it up. And he was saying like the same thing Bernie was saying, but with extra racism and fucking insult comedy. It was, you're fucked because the system's rigged against you. We're gonna drain the swamp of all these fucking lobbyists and shit, which everybody with half a brain cell to rub together knew that wasn't going to happen. But people ate that shit up because it's what they were feeling, and regardless of what Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings, people care about their feelings. And if it was a very vibe based thing with Trump, we're like, I'm vibing with this guy. He's sucking up what he's spitting down, which now that that's out of my mouth, I regret saying it that way because I've got a horrible mental image. But he told people what they wanted to hear. And that's one thing I fucking hate, giving that orange shit stain any fucking credit. But I will say this, he knows how to brand himself and he knows how to bullshit and market with the best stuff. Because I don't know of anybody else that could have run such a terrible fucking campaign and still been elected.
I know, he can't even speak a coherent sentence. And yet, for some reason, people like assign intelligence to him, and I'm like, please stop. He can't even say a coherent sentence. I don't even think he can read.
He stood in place and swayed for like 40 minutes, completely silent at a campaign event.
I know. He can't even read. When King Charles gave him a letter, and like he couldn't even read it. I think he is literally illiterate at this point. Like outside of like being like a toddler with like 2 jumbo Sharpies in his hands circling happy things, because I think he knows happy words and mean words. I don't think he can actually read. I think people type his stuff out for him. And he
It's
just
very
talks.
possible. It's very, because you can kind of get a sense of when he goes off teleprompter. He starts doing his like wackadoodle shtick, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this man? And I'm like, is ketamine giving, or is Elon giving you some ketamine these days? Like, what, or is Don Jr. giving you some coke? Like, what is happening? He's very strange, and he goes off on these tangents about Hannibal Lecter. I'm still 90% certain he was getting seeking asylum confused with insane asylums. I'm sure he thinks all these fucking asylums were being released in Mexico, and they were just sending all these batshit fucking crazy serial killers over, because he's not an intelligent person by any respects. Like I say that as the man just fucking got an election that he had no business winning. I say he's a fucking dumb shit. Smarter than fucking most of us, I guess. But he ran probably the worst campaign in history, and he fucking waltzed into the White House, and I'm like, this is a terrible fucking timeline. It's objectively awful.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to kind of understand, when we talk about messaging here, they're going to have to break down, and this might be another thing where we sit down and we break down and we talk about these facts, like, obviously like 150 some thousand or 150 some million people actually like, or those were the votes that were counted. Obviously, this doesn't count any votes that were not counted. They're cast off because of whatever reason, and not actually part of that final tally. And how many of that 77 or that popular vote that he won, that 77 million, only voted for him because of a single issue? How many of those were working class? And then look at the Dem side. Out of the 75 million that voted for Kamala, how many of those were, working class, middle class, and break down those demographics, because that's really going to tell you where the message was delivered the most to overall. So like, let's say 77 million Trump voters, and let's say like 75% of that 77 million end up being working class. So anybody that's like, low skill, low low pay, versus 75 million vote for Kamala. Let's find out that 60% of hers are middle class. This is higher skill and stuff like that. That, like, obviously I'm pulling this as a hypothetical and stuff like that, but that'd be a really good indicator of how the messages was received, exactly what was the impact, and potentially where did they pull their votes from. And I hope that's what these Democratic consultants would be doing. They would be pulling all this information as much as they can, because that's what you're really supposed to be doing. And figure out where did they fail in their messaging, and all that. And really, when they talk about like the working class left them, well, when you're not listening to their fears day in and day out, and you don't even have the presence to come on to the news and like talk about legislation that you're passing that's going to help ease this stuff, I think that makes a big impact because all they're seeing is, Israel, 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 Israel. They're not seeing, hey, we're suffering because of the pandemic. We're suffering still because of inflation. We're suffering because you guys won't stop these CEOs from doing these mass layoffs, which are making us, they're destabilizing our everyday lives. You're just concerned about Israel, and then that's all they see. It's more of the optics. And so it becomes frustrating because people are trying to figure out how the hell they're going to pay their job, pay for all their stuff when they just lost their job again for like the third time in 2 years, from a layoff. It's frustrating, and I think that's where we need to find out exactly, where do people become disenfranchised, because that's going to help with that messaging of getting out there and actually reassuring people what they're doing and tell them how they're actually helping them.
Well, if you think they actually learned anything or are making an attempt to look at the data and find out where they went wrong, I have some very bad news for you. So apparently, a bunch of those same consultants that I'm fairly certain had a pretty decently sized part in costing Kamala the election got together on a retreat, apparently in Virginia, maybe. I can't remember where it was. Some state, I'm sure, in the US. I'm almost positive. And they created a playbook. They laid out 20 solutions for how Democrats can regain working class trust and reconnect with them culturally. So, are you ready to hear what they came up with and all their infinite wisdom?
Well, I've read the motherfucker, so go. But yes, please do continue.
First on the docket is the party should embrace patriotism, community, and traditional American imagery, which I'm pretty sure they did on Kamala's campaign, so obviously they learned nothing from that.
Wish they would qualify what traditional actually means. Are they talking about a man and a woman and like the nuclear family, and no longer have DEI things? Are we swinging over into the fascist area where we're just gonna have a white family?
Envisioning a bib overall wearing hillbilly with like a wheat stalk sticking out of his mouth with a pump action shotgun and an American flag tattooed on his arm, screaming, "Yeah, brother," is all their campaign mascots at this point.
Yeah,
I could be
when
wrong.
I hear that though, I honestly, like, that made me like cringe, only because I was like, they are literally saying they want to remove like any kind of DEI stuff from their imagery. They don't want like the multicultural, they want to be whitewashed. So we get to the everyday racist. And they're okay with pandering to the everyday racist.
Which is gross. And then they also want to ban far left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests and move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. So this is basically suck off the corporate billionaires and the oligarchs, cozy up to Silicon Valley, which Hakeem Jeffries just did not too long ago. He went to make peace with the corporate oligarchs. What we did to them, I don't know. That is a mystery to me. I'm pretty sure they've been doing our corporate overlords bidding for several election cycles now, so I'm not exactly sure what he thought did not happen that was supposed to. It's very, very confusing.
Bernie's screaming there should be no such thing as a billionaire, and it hurt Zuckerberg's feelings.
Billionaires should not exist. I don't think Zuckerberg has feelings, to be honest. I don't think he came with that memory chip upgrade. That is probably in the version 3.0. They also feel they should push back against far left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. Candidates should get out of elite circles and into real communities. So what's funny about that is contradictory to the message before it.
I know.
It said push back against like they can't even stay consistent in their internal messaging with each other. They're like, all right, we need to stay away from small donors, but we also don't want the disproportionate influences on policy and messaging, but we also need to take huge corporate money. And like this thing is so fucking like not in alignment with itself that is completely fucking beyond me. Like they just sent Hakeem Jeffries to Silicon Valley to suck off these billionaires. And it's like, we should get out of elite circles and into real communities. There is nothing real about Silicon Valley. I grew up there. There is nothing real.
Well, I still want them to define what do they mean by far left, because the way they make it sound is that's all of us. Like, they essentially, like, we don't want to listen to the people anymore. You shouldn't listen to the people at all. Only listen to the people who are going to pay you. So all your super PACs and all your donors. But not the
Yeah,
small donors. Don't take the small people's money. Like, because people tore Fetterman up. And I think that's what it was, is they ripped Fetterman apart. Like dog, like they shook him and all that. And then I see it occasionally when people are like, the left needs to stop eating its own. And I'm like, okay, so if we have someone,
I feel like we're not. I'm eating Fetterman.
yeah, I'm like, so if we have someone like Alyssa Slotkin, who votes in favor at least 8 times for Trump's cabinet picks, which we all know are not qualified, are like absolute horrendous. And instead of saying no and just saying no on it, like we're not doing this, she votes yes, and she was endorsed by Liz Cheney, and she needs to be gone. Shame on us. That's the kind of shit that needs to go. Like, that kind of shit, go take your ass over there to the right side. We don't need you. That's what made people disenfranchised with the Democrats. All they're going to do is get rid. Them trying to, like, appease, like, the centrist who, one, didn't vote at all, or are going to always vote Republican regardless. Doesn't matter. They're never going to be able to check a Democrat box. No matter how the Democrats try to repaint themselves, they're never going to be able to fucking check that box. They're going to alienate a very large portion of their base again, like a good, like 40 plus million people that are currently fighting the good fucking fight. And we just are asking them to get on board and fight with us. And they're creating this playbook and labeling us the far left, because by God, we're asking them to get up off their asses and stop sucking off the corporate overlords and stop voting in alignment with people who are trying to actively destroy this country. Like, shame the fuck on us. That's why they need to be voted out, primaried out.
Yeah, nothing good. We have that new DNC chair who's like, we're only going to take the good billionaire money. We're not going to take the bad billionaire money. I'm like, there are no good billionaires. Get it out of your head. By definition, by what you have to do to achieve that level of wealth, you have to be a fucking piece of shit sociopath. And I'm sorry.
Well, that you're not paying your fucking fair share in taxes, so you're stealing. You have been stealing. Like, when people suck off Mark Cuban, I'm like, please stop. He is only a billionaire because he didn't pay his fair share in taxes. And he continues to not pay his fair share in taxes time and time again. Stop giving him handies. He doesn't need it.
Right? He can get one from Boebert if Kid Rock says it's okay.
Exactly. He's over here to just fucking grift. That's all he's fucking doing, and he doesn't care about you, or he would be doing more to help. And he's not. He's coming in and trying to make a buck. Because you can see it in every interaction. Well, you can see in his posts on Blue Sky, it's like, oh, somebody will do XYZ, I'll invest. Yeah, because investment means he's going to invest and then make more money off of it, because that's what he does. Don't ever talk about his rug pull bit NFTs or anything else like that. How many people he screwed out of money? Oh no, but that's what they do. Because he has money to burn, but they do. We pay for their way in life. They are welfare queens. They are a parasite. They are not. There's no such thing as good. No such thing as good.
No, not when it comes to billionaires. They're all fucking terrible. Like, name a good one. I fucking can't think of one.
Yeah,
I don't know why I said that. Was rhetorical. Fucking name it. Name a good billionaire. I can't fucking think of one. They're all fucking ghouls. They're all fucking terrible. They all get high sniffing their own fucking farts because they think they're hot shit because they got $1 billion. And some of them, like, they won't acknowledge the fucking working class and the middle class that got them there. Like, they're not doing the fucking work, right? They may have had, like, an idea at some point. They still surrounded themselves with people that could get them to that fucking promised land and get them to the top of their field or whatever. They didn't fucking do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but they damn sure used every single buddy around them to make that $1 billion and guarantee they didn't help those people. And then they're going to pull up that ladder right up after them and make sure nobody else can make that $1 billion, because that's what they just end up becoming really corrupted. I'd be a horrible rich person because, like, I'm one of those people, like, I just give away my shit. I just give away my money because one wouldn't know what to do with it outside of just making sure there's enough, like, in trust for, like, the kids and stuff to be able to live comfortably in a chaotic world. Like, outside of that, I'd just be like, here. I'd be like, money everywhere. Just like, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Have you ever, like, sat down and thought about how you would spend, like, fucking Elon money, right? Like $400 billion? Like, I can't even fucking figure out, like, what to buy. Like, that level of money is so fucking far beyond my scope of thinking. I'm like, well, I'd probably buy the house, like a house and a car, and then, maybe I'd throw some in the bank or maybe invest some. And after that, I'm like, I got no fucking idea. I'd be sitting on fucking $400 billion doing fuck all with it.
Be
I'm
trying
like,
to solve something, actually solving something. And I don't care what accountant, they could all get fucking fucked. Whatever fucking money investor, I'd probably make myself fucking bankrupt at some point in time because
yeah,
I'd go all into it. Like coming in and trying to figure out like how to help the homeless in America. Like what could I do to solve that problem? And that's me though, because if I can throw money at it, I would. If I had that much money, I would. I
you
wouldn't
would
just
need to get all
sit
the
back
immigrants
and
back.
like wait to be jerked off being named the richest person in the world. Like that's not the thing for me. I would never even want that kind of like,
If you give me a hand job, I'll buy you a horse.
ugh. Ugh. God, I almost
If you
threw up.
touch it, I'll buy you a horsey.
Gross.
He's a weird dude. I can't help it. It's just the comedy writes itself.
It does. But I mean, that list that they have, they can get fucked. And I hope they realize at the end of the day that there's enough grassroots going around. They're going to get their asses primaried. Like I hope to God they understand each and every one of them. Like they should be scared of us because they're going to get their asses primaried. We have like as a whole Democrat and the whole like left side, not even Democrats. The whole left side has been very complacent because for the most part it hasn't been like it's been a rough like before this like 8 years or it was almost 10 years of just a lot of shit happening between Trump's first administration, that being a fucking utter nightmare, and you like finding out like people that your family, your friends, people that you grew up with, like finding out they're like really bad people, nasty, like flipped a switch in them and they just got nasty for no reason.
Oh, I've been
Absolutely
so
disgusting.
disappointed. So
Yeah, and then
disappointed
like
by
for the
people I
like
went
the
to high school
first
with.
2-3 years, you're like almost in shell shock going, I sat with these people. We had conversations, we were friends, and like they're gross now and feeling kind of isolated, and then going out into the workforce, shit going fucking sideways after like it was like what 2017, 2018 when like a lot of like these layoffs started happening and like a lot of companies, well actually it's probably like 2015 through 2025 and continues on today, of like companies transitioning and offshooting a lot of work to outsourcing and taking jobs away from Americans and outsourcing it for cheaper, whether to the pandemic, to what they're doing now with rifts where they don't hire seasonal. No, they hire in little batches, but then they quickly turn around and fire in little batches, not to trigger TRA stuff. And it's just this turmoil that's been happening for 10 years. We just became very complacent, and I think that's what bit us in the ass with this election is our complacency and not being angry, being kind of just beat down by everyday life and just in this kind of no motion, kind of spinning our wheels of not having success like our parents did, like the boomers and then the older gen xers. These are the ones that are in their late 60s 70s into their 80s and stuff like that, where we me and you are either infant Xers or Zillennials is probably the best way to put B and U since we're right on that cusp. Especially me, because I'm literally like, if you say it's 81, I was born at the end of 80. So like, I mean, I'm talking about 2 months from 1981. So I'm like right there on this cusp. You're only what like a year behind me. So we're like Zillennials. We're in this weird kind of like hybrid age group where we're kind of fucked like millennials, but we're expected to be like Gen Z or Gen X, but we're stuck spinning our wheels. So we're just exhausted from this grind of we keep doing more, we keep taking on more work, we keep busting our asses. Yeah, we're making more money, but it feels like it's the same amount of money we had 5 years ago, which is not very much. No matter how much money we make, it's a hole we can't seem to get out of because they're digging the hole out from underneath us. And I think that's what lost Kamala this election is the apathy that everybody's kind of gotten into with it's not changing. No matter who's in office, it's not fucking changing. Unfortunately, I think that's what caused a lot of people to sit home. No matter what her messaging, she could have the best messaging in the world. I think it would have fallen on deaf ears because we didn't have enough people in Congress doing right by the people to get people inspired to go vote for Kamala.
Yeah, it's a real, the more things change, the more they stay the same kind of situation. Like, it feels like people's material conditions haven't really improved all that much.
Yeah.
I think that's the crux of it. You look at housing prices now, they're a fucking gajillion dollars. Kids getting out of college now have no fucking idea how they're going to afford buying a house. They're in their 20s, they're living with 4 or 5 fucking roommates just to make rent in some of the larger cities.
Or at home.
Like, yeah, or at home with their parents still. Their parents don't fucking want that. Jesus Christ, they already dealt with them for 18 years. Fuck. No more of that shit. They want their freedom back. But they can't because they're going to kick their kids out. I mean, some will. But, you generally don't want your kid to get kicked out. You want your kid to be happy and healthy and wise and have a roof over their heads. And, your parents can't afford to take care of them forever because, they're got Social Security and Medicare. So what the fuck are your parents going to do? They're going to be broke as fuck too here before too long.
Yeah, I mean, and Social Security is going out the door too, because that's the next thing that's going to go away. So it's going to get tough, and I think there's going to be a breaking point at some point. It's not going to end very well.
Give
I
me some
think
more
we're going to probably
Luigi's.
see it accelerate here in the next 30 to 45 days with the tariffs. Supposedly he I think if you saw like the Nasdaq like closed yesterday 600 points down and then opened today another 600, so 1200 points by the time
Down in 2 days.
when it closed and when it opened. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't he tweet out or make a statement like back in like Obama's era that if
the stock market drops 1,000 points in a week, you should be impeached immediately.
Like 2 days. Like it was like a few days. You should be impeached immediately.
He gave it a week, and he did it in 2 days. So he's better, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
better at fucking shit up.
Yeah. But I mean, it's. I don't know if he'll walk them back because I think he's just going to keep doubling down on them. And the worst part is while we shouldn't cheer, we all are cheering for the countries who are fighting back against him because at the end of the day, doing something that our Congress and that a lot of our reps in Congress need to do. But I will say this, with this messaging and stuff like that, always make sure you qualify who you're talking to. So one of the things when we talk about the Democrats and stuff like that, you need to start qualifying it. And I think we started calling the ones you did at least, neolibs are the neolibs in Congress. So those are your Schumers, your Hakeem Jeffries, Alyssa Slotkins, and stuff like that. They're not progressives, and your progressives are the ones who are actually fighting. Those are the ones that they're scared of, and that's what this new list is against, is progressive, because progressive is going to hold people accountable. It's not a purity test, it is accountability. So I think we need to control the narrative, and 2, we need to make sure we're qualifying our statements and actually identifying, because what you don't want to do is create content or talk about something, make a post online and say the Democrats, and then have a Republican or somebody who is maybe on the off chance thinking about looking at the Democrats, read that and go, oh shit, the Democrats are just as bad. Look at this person talk about the Democrats. And they think about, when you say the Democrats, they're thinking about everybody. They don't understand the nuance, even when provided with the proper context. When you just say the Democrats, you got to qualify statements like that. Don't make blanket statements. I've been posting a lot online, asking people, please don't say the Democrats. I get what you're saying. You're talking about this person here. However, or you're talking about the DNC. However, that's not how it's going to be taken by somebody who doesn't understand what you're actually referring to, because you've provided no other fucking context. It's pretty much like you're assuming people understand, and that's not okay. This is part of that messaging, is stop, take a moment, and don't assume people know what you're actually talking about. Qualify those statements when you don't make blanket statements.
Yeah, because then you're just kind of both sidesing it, and we all know the propaganda that's been circulating around. A lot of people are like, "Oh, both sides are just as bad." I'm like, no, one side is literally Sig Heiling at an inauguration on national TV, and the other side is like, hey, we want everybody to have health care so people don't die in the fucking streets.
Yeah. One does not equal the other. They are not the same. They are not the same. There is a huge difference. Now, when we talk about like leadership in the Senate, yes, there are quite a few where you would never be able to tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat, and a true progressive Democrat, because they're old school, they're institution. And we need to get rid of that. That needs to be cut out. Just because they're a Democrat does not mean that they are immune. That does not make them special. We need to do a good job, and we need to do what MAGA and what the Republicans refuse to do, which is actually clean up their party. It's not about eating our own. It's about maintaining a standard that we do expect that our representatives do right by us, that they go in and they vote appropriately, not in their own best interest to line their own pockets. It is in the people's best interest, the people who voted them to be their voice.
See, I know what you were trying to say when they say they clean up their own party. Honestly, they've made it objectively worse for the universe. But to your point, they're only getting people that are lockstep with them, which is smart because they're all on brand and all on message now, at least until their constituents start showing up with pitchforks and getting super fucking pissed at them for ruining their material quality of life.
Yeah, well, they are. Those town halls are getting pretty heated and pretty nasty. I mean, people are starting to protest more and more, and it's good to see. It's good to see people putting that fire out there and all that. I have seen, quite a number of people just say, "Hey, make sure," because just like the Black Lives Movement stuff, there were paid operatives that came in and started a lot of that violence. There were people that came in under the guise of being part of Antifa and all that they later found out were not Antifa, that to make Antifa look bad, to make the Black Lives Movement look bad. What we don't need happening is people doing that under the guise of making Democrats look bad, making the left look bad while we're trying to peacefully protest. People can protest. Just make sure it is peaceful. Make sure you maintain that barrier so Trump can't pull anything and try to like stop elections or anything, and put us under a state of emergency. Act within. We are all upset and all that, but use that energy to go out there and just attend more, peaceful protests, and just make sure that, you do the right thing and use your voice and educate, try to find a way to explain things to people that makes sense to them, talk to them, find out about their lives, and then use that information to then turn around and explain something to them. The best example I can give you, Jason, is, your mom. When I was explaining to her how a 3D printer worked, she loves to sew, and I know she knows about embroidery machines. So I explained like a 3D printer to her, like I would, like an embroidery machine, and I explained to her how you upload the pattern into it. It knows, all the different colors that need to go because the pattern, the machine, processes it, and it tells it step by step, you do these stitches here in this color, and you do these stitches here in that color. And I said, it's the same energy with the 3D printer, except it's going not only on a 2D surface, it's now printing, on your XY, it's going up as well. So you're going, side to side plus up and down. And it clicked with her. She went, "Oh, okay, well that's easy." And I said, a hot glue gun. How you put the solid stick in there, and it the tip, the filament is hot, and then it melts the glue and it comes out in that little string. I said that's the same energy. I said it takes a string of plastic, has a hot tip to it, and it literally comes out like a hot glue gun, and then it knows exactly where to put the glue. And it clicked with her on how it worked, because I was able to take those two things and kind of mash them together and say, okay, this is how a 3D printer works. And so I think if people just sit down and talk to people, figure out, what they like, how to do that, they can figure out how to message. They can figure out how to translate the message to somebody where it makes sense to them based on their lifestyle and everything.
Yep. And on that note, I think that is all the time we have for this evening. Yeah, I think that's about it. I gotta shut all this stuff down before the storm gets any crazier. This is madness.
Yeah, I think probably there's some thunder earlier in our
Oh yeah,
recording. So
tons of it. Yeah, if you guys hear it, you're fine. We're not under attack. We'll be okay. This is not a War of the World moment.
No, just weather.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up for the night. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, sounds good. Have a great evening.